Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff and another first impressions video, and today we have the brand new 2022 new tool Stug III Ausf G from Miniart. So at the time of recording this, the 12th of February 2022, this is brand new and just hitting the shops right now as we speak. It's landed with me today. So the kit number is 35335. It tells us that it's a Stug III depicted in February of 1943. Not quite sure what LCAT prod means, production I'm guessing. It also tells us that we've got a full interior kit to this. We have a nice bit of artwork here which shows it on the Russian steppe. So Russian cottage in the background, tells us it's 1/35 scale, and then we've got a depiction of the 5 figures. Yeah, all looks really nice, doesn't it? And as I look at the two sides, they're the same and pretty much tell you the same as what you get on the top. And then on this side we've got some of the paint options, which includes the one that's been used on the top cover. I've already opened this just to check that everything was okay, and that unfortunately meant I had to open the bag. Now when I say the bag, I mean the bag. Have a look at this photo. All of the sprues were in one single bag, and there's a lot of sprues. So let's take the lid off and then you can get an idea of how packed this very deep box is, and it's rammed to the top. Now what they've done is they've packed everything in a bag and it left a bit of space like that, but there was nothing else in there. Even this was in the bag. So we have our instructions. We have some clear parts and some decals. We have what we know, if you've had a Miniart kit before, is the Photo-etched, and then the rest of it is plastic parts, and there is lots of them, lots and lots and lots and lots of them. Let's have a look at the instructions first. So we have an A4 instruction booklet. It's colour and it's stapled, and it's the typical Miniart fashion where you get part of a side view, part of a profile view. It's how they like to present it. Tells you what it is, gives you the kit number again. Then we get a technical drawing type look, and it tells us a little bit about it. So the instruction manual tells us at the top here that we've got full interior kit, which is great. I'm looking forward to that. And then it says February 1943 LCAT prod. So that's LCAT production. Now I've just had a quick look at this because I wasn't sure what LCAT was, and it turns out it's the manufacturing site, which was near Berlin and part of the Rheinmetall group. So it's the location where this was manufactured. And then if we look on the back, they're promoting another version of the Stug a little bit later on, and we've got a full list of colours. So it tells you the colour by name, and then it gives you the Vallejo, Mr. Colour, AK, Mission Models, Ammo MIG and Tamiya colour references. So you've got lots and lots of choice there. Then when we turn over, we go straight to the paint instructions. So let's have a look. We've got Sturmgeschütz Abteilung 189, Eastern Front Spring 1943. Which is in white camouflage, so grey with white camouflage. Then we've got 21 Luftwaffen Field Division, Adler Division, Staraya Russia Region, Eastern Front Spring 1943. So that's just a heavily weathered standard blue version. Well, there's a very subtle difference. There's a B on the gun there, and there's a D on the gun there, and that's the only difference I can see. Okay, bit odd, but anyway. 4 is Sturmgeschützabteilung Großdeutschland in the Ukraine, spring 1943, which is the one depicted on the front cover. And then paint option 5 is Sturmgeschützabteilung 210 Eastern Front 1943, and that's in the yellow with green camouflage. That's quite a nice little version, isn't it? Possibly could end up doing that one, don't know yet, early days. So back to the front. We then have our sprue map. So let's count how many sprues as we go through this. So we've got a decal sheet there, and we've got photo-etched parts, which appears to include a plaque, and grills and bits and pieces. So we've got sprues with shells on, 3 of those, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 42, 43, 45, 47, 48, 49, 53 sprues plus 16 track links. So 16 sets of those track links. So that's a lot of parts. I've built kits with less parts than there is sprues. Okay, that's the sprue map done, and then we are on our first step. Now this is typical of Miniart. What they do is they do the steps, you might get several on a page, but they don't divide them up, and so it makes the page look quite busy and can be a little bit hard to concentrate. So the first thing I do with Miniart instructions is what I tend to do with trumpeter instructions and Tamiya instructions, is I just draw boxes around them to separate them, and I just find it easier to progress through the instructions because my eye focuses on that one area rather than the whole thing. I also think it's less stressful. So yeah, so we're starting with the floor pan. There's no bathtub here, this is all individual parts. Then we've got the torsion bars and some of the framework, more framework and engine compartment flooring, firewall, and we're starting to build up the back end there. Lots and lots of detail going in. I mean, I'm going to whip through this fairly quickly, otherwise this will be like 4 videos. So lots of detail, and just look at this, how the seat builds up. You've got the frame at the bottom, you've got the seat frame going on top, which looks very detailed, the adjustable handle and everything. Lots and lots of pipe work. Engine looks really nice. No doubt we should be able to add some cables or something onto that as well. So quite a bit of work on the engine to be done and the transmission. Then we've got the shell holders, engine going in, and these little numbers, the round numbers, is telling you what part that's come from. So step 8, that's step 8, and we're doing that. So again, we're putting the shells in, painting the shells, putting them in, and it's really interesting, isn't it? I'd be tempted to have at least one shell out just so you can see it painted. And then we're making more shell racks, and they're going in, but don't they look absolutely spot on? Then it looks like we've got... Oh, now I said that was the engine, but that's the transmission, isn't it? That's the transmission system, and that's the engine. So building up the engine compartment, then building up the engine. Lots of detail going on that engine. We've got... So that's a model in its own right, that, isn't it? And then batteries. More work in the engine compartment, engine then finally going in. More sides coming together, and then we're looking at the front, putting separate armour on. Got radiators going on. Lots and lots of drive belts and the like. Look how complex the hatches are. Double hatches, hosed open or closed. So we've got different options, different hatches. So we'll have some nice spares. Some of the exterior parts going on now. Towing hooks, exhausts, drive wheels. Looks like we've got the maker's mark on the rubber tyres, which is nice. Some photo-etched being used. So we're flipping around a little bit here. We're building up the outside area of the rear of the tank. Then we're back on the inside, putting some hoses in, which go to the silencers for the exhausts. And you've got a nice little picture there with orientation. And then we're back to the outside again. Got some nice photo-etched chain there. I'll have to have a look at that with it being photo-etched. It might be a bit 2D. We might want to swap that out for actual chain. And then some more parts going on the outside there, which is sort of protecting the exhaust, I guess. Then complete change from that area, and we're building up the back end of the main gun. So we've got multi-part breech, which is nice to see. Shell bag, amazing number of parts just going into the gun area. Wow. A lot of these parts you usually see moulded on in one lump, so they're really going to town on it. Then we've got some parts going on, an interior bulkhead, machine gun, ammunition pouches, radio sets, and that sort of equipment all being built up onto its shelf. Another form of electrical box of some type. Oh, and then we've got cabling going in the upper part of the tank now. So you can see the basic shape starting to form with the various bulkheads and bits and pieces. More cabling going in. Vision blocks going into the coupler ring. Then we've got the back end of the gun once that's been mounted on. That looks like one of the engine covers, possibly. So, heavy machine gun, roof's going on, but not before we've put more parts on the inside. Gun muzzle is 3 pieces, so that's nice to see. It means we've got nice detail on the inside. Look how busy it looks. So that's the rear engine deck being put together. We've got some photo-etched grills on there. spare tracks and what I suspect will be spare wheels. And then we're fitting all of these hatch tops with the various configurations. They changed quite a bit over time. The jack block is 3 pieces. Then we're building up that's idler wheel, which has got some form of photo etch on it. Make 12, so that's our main road wheels. And we've got the spares going on there. There's a rack going on the back. And then on the back of the rack is the fuel cans. And then we're starting to build up the wheels. So, I mean, what are we on? Step 122, and we're just starting to put the wheel construction on. Pioneer tools and bits and pieces, crank handle and the like. So if the wheels are anything like the ones in the picture, they're going to look gorgeous. We've got all the markings on the rubber tyres, both on the return rollers, the road wheels, drive sprocket, and idler wheel. And it shows you how to build up the tracks. They've given you a jig, and then there's pins that go in, and then you cut off that end piece, leaving the pins in. So that means we've got fully workable track. Quite a few parts to build up the mud flaps at the rear, and yeah. Then we've got that jack block and more bits and pieces going on. Fire extinguishers and tail lights. More tools, more tools, more tools. Jack block. Then we're making up the towing cables. Towing cables going on. Just need to find out what that symbol is because it doesn't come to mind. Yeah, towing hooks. And then finally the gun and the whip aerials. So 147 stages without painting. Then we've got our 5 figures, and they have their own colour shout-outs, using all the same brands that they've used for the rest of the build. I just want to go back and find out what that... Where's the build key? Oh, there's the key. Keep going past it. Ah, scratch built. So, I just want to go and check something. Yeah, all of these pipe works had that symbol on. Scratch built. Right, so that's all wire that we have to put in. Oh, a bit of a shame they've not supplied the tow cable material. But anyway, that is the instructions. Let's have a look at some of the other bits and pieces. Decals now, and what we've got is 1 or 2 interior decals, some gauges, national mark. I mean, on the outside of the tank, there's not much. You've got a decal for the gun, national markings, and then some insignia for the various units, depending on which way you go. And then most of these others are decals for going on things like the shells. So, not a massive number of decals there. I'm sure there would have been more sort of warning signs and instruction signs on the inside, but we do have some plates and bits and pieces, so I'm guessing it's right. But so in our little cardboard envelope, as is Minicraft's way, we have the sheet of Photo-etched, and we've got grills for the vents. We've got parts for tool holding, the fire extinguisher holder. These rings were on the idler wheels. We've got the components there for the jerry cans, some strapping, some boxes, grab handles, levers. Those are for the shell holders, and a couple of little hand wheels there. And we have a very nice little name plaque that tells you what the vehicle is. It does have the maker's mark on it, which I'm not keen on, but we might be able to remove that and put a flag or national symbol or something like that on it. So yeah, that's all pretty nice. Right, plastic. I'm not going to do these in alphanumerical order. I'm just going to do them as they come out, because that's the best way of getting them to fit back in. So this is actually Sprue D, and it's one of the larger sprues. There's lots of small sprues in here. And what we can see, well, first thing I can see is we've got some slide moulding on there. So that's putting handles on the side of that and connection points for electrical cabling. But what we've got some floor pan there, which has got some very nice texturing on. The various bits of radio and electrical equipment with all little switches on, really quite nicely done. You've got some drawers there. We've got the various dials for monitoring the engine and speed and that sort of stuff. And a lot of the parts are not recognisable when they're in such a small state, because there's so many parts going into this. There's our transmission block, so that's very nice. We've got hosing and various other bits and pieces. Detail is stunning, isn't it? Then we've got our 5 figures, so they've all come separate legs, separate arms, separate head and hats. What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we've got steel helmet or soft hat alternatives, so you've got options there. They look really quite nicely moulded. Traditionally, Miniart figures can be a little bit of a challenge, but these look quite nice. Not a lot of clean up on them, and the facial expressions look suitably stern. You seem to have 2 head types, one with and one without chin straps, so depending on what you're doing in terms of headwear. Might be nice to mix it up and have some with steel helmets and some with cloth caps. MD has got our exhausts on, which are hollowed out a little bit, and I was going to say that's flash. I'm going to put my magnifying glasses on because I suspect it might not be flash. No, it's a very, very lightly moulded flange. Okay, so we've got exhausts, we've got what looks like 2 different types of the same part. Very nice welding seams on there. Some very thin moulding as well. It's really nice. Got all the bolt heads, hexagon heads. There is a little bit of sink in that part though. Sprue MC has our upper roof with the commander's coupler ring, and again we've got screw heads, welding, detail. That's really nice. We've got some plastic handles. Then we've got interior firewall there between the engine compartment and the cabin, which is very nice. It's got some cabling and wiring on. You might want to take that off. As you're putting your own wiring in, scratch building some wiring, you might want to take that off and replace that, or at least get underneath it and just round it off a little bit. But that's very nice. The heavy machine gun is very finely detailed, so that's nice. And then we've got some of the lids and some of this space armour with nicely depicted bolt heads, and then more spaced armour which has got the viewports in. Look at how lovely that welding is. Now, interestingly, at this particular manufacturing site, they had some international workers, Italians and the like, and one of them a sort of resistance movement within the factory. And they did various things, but one of the things they did was deliberately make the welding weak. So by changing the settings on the welding gear, so that for all intents and purposes it would pass inspection, but it'd be brittle, and after a while it would fail. So that was one of the things they did. Sprue B now, another one of the big sprues, and this has got general parts for the Stug 3 on it. So these are all parts that you probably see across all the variant Stug 3s that they do. So we've got the floor here, which has internal detail on one side, external detail on the other, and does have a bit of sink in it. And then we've got hatch covers, we've got the castings, which quite smooth actually. We've got internal bulkhead, which is very, very nice indeed. Got the light there, more armour components. That's part of the torsion bar system. Some hatch covers, and then we've got the two tank sides. So that gives you a basic idea of how big this is. When you look at all the parts that are going into that, it's bonkers. Yeah. And there is some internal detail on that as well. Some hefty injector pin marks there. If you want to look at those and study those, just pause the video. Sprue F, and we've got part of the idler wheel on there. So there's not a lot of grouping of parts for the same area of build. So we've got torsion bars, we've got some of the exterior suspension, which isn't used until right near the end, as we saw. We've got some internal parts, we've got hatch covers, suspension, struts, and yeah, so exterior clips, all sorts of bits and pieces. So it's a little bit all over the place in terms of part grouping, but you can't escape the fact that the detail is really nice, as it always is on Miniart. I mean, there's a little bit of slide moulding here. And some nice gear moulding there, very clean. Sprue J has got the mudguard skirts, however you want to describe them, which has a nice texture on them. And we've got the bases for mounting some of the various tools. They're quite busy bits of equipment. And there's also texture on the underside, so even though a lot of that won't be seen because of the tracks, if you're doing a diorama with broken track or whatever, it will all look correct and as it should be. So that's really nice. And then that's the mud flaps, rear lights, and some form of fasteners. So that's Sprue JA. Sprue JE has got the engine compartment top on it, which has the hinges already put on, and one or two other little details, including some very fine welding at the side. And there's a bit of a texture, so I'm guessing that's supposed to be casting. I'm not sure. Show you that in a sec. Then we've got two little side pieces and some form of tank of some description with weld seams on. All looks lovely. There's nothing much on the inside. These will be seen on the inside. They sit on the sides at the rear, and there is ejector pin marks there to sand out and fill. Sprue JB has mainly its exterior part. So we've got the front armour with the hatch openings for the driver and I think that's the radio guy, isn't it? We've got some fastener detail, weld detail. There's some nice texture to that as well, although the part does look a bit bowed. And then we've got spaced armour, and that looks like spaced armour to go over that plate there, which I think is the front plate, but I'm not 100%. That I think is the exterior plate that goes, so the drive wheel goes on top of that, the drive sprockets go on top of that. And then we've got some nice interior detail on that plate as well. So you can see, I mean, you won't see that at all, but it's there. So we need to have a think about how we're going to display this model. We've got two Sprue FJs here, which have road wheels, the two halves of a road wheel, so I'm guessing this is the spare, and then you've got like a location pin, so that's how it's sort of mounted onto the tank as a spare, and some possibly the mounting point for it. So I think that goes on the hull, that goes onto the top of that point there, and then the spare wheel mounts on top, I think is what happens. But the spare wheel is lovely. There's texture on the tyre, and then there's wording which says Voorwerk, and then there's some smaller lettering which I'm struggling to read. It's numbers 500/86-897. There's a little bit of seam on the lip that just needs skimming off, but otherwise that's really nice. So that's the backs, the inside surfaces, and then that's your outside surfaces. And look at that lovely detail on the tyre. Beautiful. So 2 of those. More road wheels with Sprue FD, and we've got 4 of these in total, which will give us all of the road wheels. And they're exactly the same as the ones we've just seen, but we've got the hubs on these, and you can see, if you look really closely, you can see the little welds around the edge on the inside of the rim. They are absolutely stunning. And that's the inside. Sprue EA, and this is all internal components. So we've got pipe work, junction points. I'm not quite sure what those are. Are they to do with the suspension? Not sure. Some large bit of pipe work for something or other. Not quite sure what those are either. Look like some form of box tops. The 2 radiators. And the engine fan grills. All nicely done. So the gun mantle and the gun on Sprue HC. Yeah, so this strange triangular lump that they had on this particular version, and then some form of plates. I wonder if that, don't know what that is, whether that's connected to it or not. It has weld seams on. There's fasteners around the ring there, so I'm guessing that must go on there by the looks of it. Yeah, and the bolt heads are nicely done, and the weld around it, lovely. So we've got 2 of these Sprue ECs, and we've got gas masks, an electrical junction box, some bits for shell handling and storage, machine gun pouches, ammunition pouches. Not quite sure what those are, little diamonds with a lump on them. What looks like the top of some form of box, and some side brackets which are to support a shelf or something like that, and submachine gun, and I'm not quite sure what they are, but we need 4 of them, it would appear. Sprue GF, and we've got more slide moulding on this. So whatever these are have got open ends. So this is all internal parts for me. That looks like it's related to the gun mounting. So these could all be parts that go on the quite complex build of the gun. We do have a bit of flash on these brackets. They look like they sit on the top of there. So they've got the fastener heads on and what have you. And then these bits will sit on there. So yeah, I think they're all gun related parts. Sprue HA is focused on tools for the top. So previously I said there wasn't much in the way of parts grouping. We've got some sprues that are parts grouped, so all of this is to do with tools and fastening of tools. So we've got a shovel there which is actually slightly bent because of the way the gates are. The gates are actually pushing it out of line a little bit when you look at it. You'll see in a sec when I show you. Bolt cutters are finally done. We've got some plastic brackets with wing nuts and things. They're a bit flashy as well. And then we've got the cleaning rods for the gun, again a bit flashy. Fire extinguisher, hatchet, lump hammer, starter handle. Some nice detail on the with the rivets on the spade, and actually the inside of the spade is nicer than the bit that you won't see is nicer than the outside bit. It's all accurate, but I'll show you the inside of the spades. And can you see if I flip it that way that one is ever so slightly bent? The spade blade is actually being pushed down, making that little bit there not straight. But the parts will look lovely when cleaned up. Sprue ED, and we've got lots of little internal parts. There's no way I can talk you through what any of those are. There are some control handles and bits there, but it's just bits and pieces that go inside, and they're nice and crisply moulded. And that's all I can say about those, really. We have two Sprue FEs, which have some form of internal part on them. I'm not quite sure what they are. That we have some sync on that one, which looks like it's possibly the underside. Those are the mounting points, and that's the face you see, in which case it's not really an issue. That looks like a vision port, where the bit where you rest your head on. Otherwise, not really sure what those are. I'm guessing they go inside though. So Sprue CD and CE joined together, and we've got some damage on this one. So like I said at the start, this all came in one bag, and the result is, yeah, I see why. It's how this has been designed. So you can see this sprue runner here terminates here, and so that floats around. But this part here is a whip aerial, which is broken in 1, 2, 3 places, because the base of the whip aerial is connected to that sprue, and the rest of the aerial is connected to this sprue, and those two sprues can both move independently. So it's just put a load of stress on it and absolutely shattered that part. So that is poorly thought through design there. A lot of release agent on this as well. So I mean, that's not the end of the world, because we can replace that with stretch sprue or wire or whatever we like. But disappointing that they've not thought about that. That is, yeah. Anyway, nothing that can't be sorted. We've got the exhaust pipework there, the little vision blocks, they're nicely done. All sorts of other parts that is difficult to identify because they're so small and components of a part. Little blanking off hatch with its fastener there. and that's the wooden jacking block, which actually I thought would have had a better wood texture, but when you do get wood texture, it tends to be overscale, the wood grain, so probably better as it is. And then if I look at these, we've got the fans are moulded in there. They're very fine. Probably a little bit thick, but when you look at them from whichever angle, they're gonna look absolutely fine. We've got some pipe work there. I'm not quite sure what they are. Got the box that we saw going in with the batteries on top, and there's another fastened down box there. More pipe work. Quite a few belts. We've got couplings and pipe work and what have you. More internal main structure parts. That's the battery box. So other than that one catastrophe of damage there, which has not been helped by the fact that all of these sprues were in one bag. Anyway. And there is some detail on the other side of the sprues. But most of it is single facing parts. Sprue CB seems to be focused on the engine block. So we've got the two ends of it there. We've got the rocker covers there, manifolds with hoses nicely depicted, moulded on. Then the actual engine block itself, 3 parts. That's really detailed as well. Some more drive belts and bits that go off it. Look at the detail on that with the little gears on it and what have you. It's just stunning. Very, 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 very nicely done. There's 2 Sprue FBs which have our return rollers on, and they're the earlier war versions with the rubber tyres on, and the rubber tyres have all of the numbers and lettering on, so different numbers than last time, so nicely researched, no doubt. Really lovely, 2 of those. Even have nice detail on the back. Stunning. Okay, Sprue JD has got more tooling that goes over the tank. So another shovel, starter handles, jack, another hatchet, more gun cleaning equipment, but individual this time. So this tow hooks and bits. So this might allow you to have the tools mounted on with the photo-etched fasteners, possibly. We've got slide moulding at the end for the towing cable eyes, which have got open ends, which is nice. What is not nice is the fact that we don't actually have the towing cable, and that's something we have to source separately from the kit. Now for me, the tow cables are a fundamental item on the kit. They're fundamental to the model. They're not options, they're not things you can put on if you want. They were definitely there. And even more so than the wiring that they've given you as options, that the tow cables is a major part of the model. And for me, they should be there. And if they don't want to mould them, they should give you some thread or something like we've got in our initial production tank from Roundfield Models. They put some thread in. So, you know, I understand there's different methods that people could use, but the kit should supply something, even if you want to swap it out. So that, I think, is a low point. But the plastic parts, nothing wrong with those at all. Sprue AG has some individual track links on. Now this is not how the main workable tracks is presented, so these are spares to be grouped together and mounted on the tank, and the cleanup is going to be minimal on them. They do have open guide horns, which is lovely. I mean, when you get close to them, they've even got the little letters marked on and the gaps in the side. They are perfect. They are really, really, really good. Yeah, there's nothing they could do to make them any better. Although I gotta say, I do have a number of them that are broken. So let's just see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Got 8 broken ones. Don't know if you can see that. If you look at them that way, you can perhaps see it better. So across the top, they've been stressed between the 2 gates. Now probably when we cut them off, they might just settle back, and a little bit of liquid poly will sort it out. And there's a little bit of flash on some of them as well, so they do need some cleanup. But the gates seem to be stressing the part like that, which has caused them to snap in the middle. So again, Mr. Miniart, you need to think about how you're doing that. Having the gates wider might have helped. Might have made it worse. Sprue CA, and we've got lots of tiny little parts here. A lot of them to do with the engine. We've definitely got parts there for the engine, and then we've got other parts as well, which I think might lead off, maybe even be in the engine bay. More belts. They must have carried spare belts with them because there's so many belts on this thing. We've got some hoses and pipe work and flywheels and all sorts of bits, and we've got a slide moulded part on the end there. No issues with that lot though. So this is Sprue BF, and that's got our 2 jerry cans on it and a fuel tank. Just got the writing on it, which is nice, which is raised stamped writing on that one, and then stamped recessed writing on the jerry cans. And we saw in the instructions how complex they are, but they're nice, very nice. Sprue GE has muzzles on it, 4 of them to be precise, with 3 different inner ring options. And I've got to say, as I look at the muzzles, I can see differences in the ends of all of those, but they all look pretty much the same. They're slide moulded so that they're nice and hollowed all the way through. Maybe there's slightly different widths that you can't see with the eye, but you can certainly see the differences with the end pieces and those inner bits. So all the various muzzle options on there, so that's good. Sprue KB and KC, the last of the big sprue, and we've got major structural parts here. So you've got the gun mantle interior bulkheads. I think they're external. No, they might be internal parts. All sorts of bits and pieces. The welding, as always, is nicely done. A little bit of flash on them. Bolt heads are all lovely. Yep, so that's nice. And then on this side we've got so that's the shell capture bag, which I think is probably a little overdone. Looks like Rocky Mountain rather than canvas bag. The seat is nice though, that looks really authentic. A little bit of flash on that handle. Well, I think we could be kind and say heavy seam. Some more pipe work and internal parts which do have quite a bit of seam on. Then we've got the back of the seat there, and the pad's got some nice texturing on. Some form of notice, or is that the side of the seat? Not quite sure what that is. All seems good and in order. Sprue F, and we've got smoke discharges there. We've got 2 of these sprues, and we've got options for spent and ready to go. I'm not quite sure what those are, but we clearly need 6 of them. Sprue AF has 6 rods on them, not sure what they are, but we've got 2 of those sprues, so we clearly need 12 of those. Then we've got on AG the little jig there for building your tracks, and then on BH we've got jerry can fitting, so we've got the tops there and the hinges separately and the handles, and then I don't know what, we've got 1 side piece. Why that would be, I don't know. Got 2 FHs which deal with the drive sprocket, and we've got casting letters on there, lovely bolt detail, and well, it looks like we've got a back and then 2 options on the front there. You can see the casting numbers, and then that's the back. So that'll look really authentic when done. So I have 6 of these Sprue ABs, and they are all containing the shells. They don't have any markings on the bottom, and we didn't see anything in the photo etch for those, so that's a little disappointing, but they seem to be nicely shaped. I'm just going to quickly look and see if there's anything that's different or whether they're all the same. So you'd expect them to be armor piercing and HE. There we go, that's AE. So we've got 3 of one type and 3 of another. So we do have different types. You can see the shape of the shell is different. You can see there you've got your pointy nose, and actually we've got 4 different types of shells. I hadn't noticed, but on this first one here there's 2 different types. So running across the bottom there we've got a different type to that. So we'll have hollow charge in there, HE, armor piercing, yeah, 4 different types. So that's lovely. They'll all have different places to mount, so we'll have to be careful that we don't mix them up when we take them off. And then finally, we have a bag with all of our tracks on and pins. So I'm not going to take these out, but when you look at them, you can see you've got the sprue has a track on each side and then pins on each side. So you cut that bit off and then you use it again to pin it together. And these look like they're in much better condition to the spare track links that we saw, but just as nicely moulded. So there we have it, the brand new Minart Stug III Ausf G, built at the Elket production facility in Germany as of February 1943, with complete interior kit and figures. So what do I think? Well, let's just talk Miniart generally for a moment, because I think there's a comment to be made about how Miniart go about their kits. What Miniart are doing is they are breaking their kits down into a very high part count so that they can individually mould a higher level of detail. That means you end up with something that is a very immersive construction experience, and you get to know all of the various elements of this tank quite intimately in the process of building it. And Miniart are very good and have built up a reputation for very good models. My experience of Miniart kits is sometimes the fit is a bit less positive than you'd like, just because they don't do things like location pins, and that's because location pins add difficulties like not being able to have the parts the accurate size, and creating sink marks and creating other issues. So they tend to ignore that and rely on the skill of the modeler. So I would say that generally a Miniart kit is for a more experienced modeler. But you get a lot of build experience for the money. So this is retailing at somewhere between, well, if you say on average £60 in the UK, that's a lot of kit for £60. Do you need to throw anything at it? Well, yes you do. You need to add the tow cables, and you need to add your own wiring in places. Now, generally what I would say is you can build this completely out of the box, but you can't because you've not got the tow cables. And for me, the low lights are the lack of tow cable. I think that's not acceptable really. And the fact that we've got some broken parts, and as much as I'd like to say that's because they put all the sprues together in one bag, the bag was really tightly sealed, and none of those sprues were moving around. I gave it a shake and nothing was moving. So actually it's how the parts have been designed in relation to how they're mounted on the sprue that has caused all the issues of those parts breaking. And it's a little disappointing, but it's minor stuff that we can certainly work through. But my job as I'm reviewing it is to point out the good bits and the bad bits. So those are the two low lights. Highlights, you've got everything in the box. You need to build a complete tank inside and out and fully staff it, ready for action. It's got pretty much everything you need other than the bits we've just highlighted. The level of detail is to Miniart's usual standard, as in very high standard. The welding is done very nicely, nothing's too heavy. Other than a little bit of flash and cleanup, which you always get with a Miniart kit, the plastics on the softer side, Other than that, I would say you've got a really stunning kit in here, and Miniart have done a very good job on it. But yeah, lovely. I think the most challenging bit on this build will probably be the tank tracks, which look a little bit fiddly, but once you get into the swing of it, should be fine. The photo etch doesn't look overly challenging. There's not a huge amount of it, and not a lot of bending and bits and pieces to do. Probably this structure at the back, the where you can put all your stowage, is probably the thing that's got the most bending in it. Now, as for what you want to do with the kit, for me, if you're building an interior kit, you want to build it so you can lift bits off and have a look inside. So this isn't a diorama tank for me. This is a display tank. Not a bad price considering the cost of models at the moment and the cost of everything at the moment. That is not a bad price, and there is literally many hours of fun to be had with that. Okay, so I hope that the tour of what's in the box gives you an idea as to whether you want to buy into this or not. So, thanks for looking in. Take care, everyone. Enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon.